news, I have the pleasure of bringing back, she hasn't been here since ASAP Rocky. Afi Patterson is here.
Hello.
Afi, how are you?
Fantastic. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Thank you. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
yeah, perfect. I don't have
Okay.
my
You don't have your
little
buds?
earbuds, so yeah.
You know, the negative of that is I can shout you down because what happens is it'll come through your computer and it basically will mute your voice. So, I'll try not
Oh,
to step on you. I'll try not to step on you too much.
love that.
You have to realize, when you work with Linda Kenny Bodden, you got to work hard to get your words in edgewise. So just by habit, I may do that. Anyway, good to have you. Nice to see you.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. You guys have got me, diving deep into Karen Reed.
It is a quagmire that once you get into, it is tough to escape. So let me get into and get your reaction to one of the another latest. I like to play this one. All right, so this breaking news has to do with some paperwork that was filed by our favorite, Mr. Hank Brennan. And for those who have been watching this since the beginning, it seems like forever ago, it was probably a week or so ago, when there was some testimony entered into the case, excuse me, about the text messages that were back and forth between Mr. Higgins and the defendant, Karen Reed. If you remember those, it was like the arc of a relationship over 3 weeks of texts from, oh, I think you're hot. No, I think you're hot. And then, back and forth, until ultimately on January 23rd, Karen Reed ghosts Brian Higgins. And this, of course, is 6 days before the subject events. So during the course of that back and forth, one of the issues being presented was this thing in Aruba. I'm not sure Aruba was mentioned, but it was a vacation we know was in Aruba. And there was some fraternization that apparently got Karen Reed upset. That was Brian Higgins with one of the people on their group vacation. It's one of the Sullivan sisters. I get them confused, but as we go through this motion, I'm sure I'll be reminded which one it is. So what's happened is it's the old Afi, the old open the door theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was something ruled on pre-trial by the court, and it was, we don't need to get into that whole Sullivan sisters Aruba thing. Well, now prosecution believes the defense has opened that door with their cross-examination and their recitation of all these texts. So let's go to the document, and I want you to walk through this with me so we can kind of explain what's happening and what they're looking for. So this is the basic motion here. Moving to admit testimony through percipient witnesses who observed the defendant and the victim's volatile and hostile relationship as it existed at the time of the victim's death. 4 weeks prior to the murder, the defendant became enraged at the victim for speaking to a female friend who was on their group vacation in Aruba and accused the victim of having an affair. So let me just ask you that on its face. Based on the text messages where they definitely allude to this event, have they opened the door?
No,
not at all.
No, they've cracked it open, but I don't think not wide enough.
Okay.
My first thought is, it's going to sound so common, but stay out of grown folks' business. People argue. That doesn't mean that, and I would think that the first thing I think of is the fact that Karen needed an outlet, and he was an outlet, and she ghosted him once she got over it. So I just, and if there haven't been any just DV calls, any DV incidents or convictions or arrests,
domestic violence, right?
Yeah. That's right. This is a non-starter.
Okay, so here we have basically the prosecution's attempt to bring in this one event that happened in Aruba, allegedly, in which Karen Reed sees Brian Higgins, John O'Keefe, all over one of the Sullivan sisters. And that somehow is part of the emotional climax that ends with her wanting to run him over, right? Mm-hmm. So the court could agree with you and say, no, the door may have been opened a crack, but there's not enough light coming through for us to get into this trial within a trial on this Aruba vacation, right? Mm-hmm. I have to say, only because the prosecution is bringing this motion that I think it tips the scale maybe a little bit further in their favor. They go on to say evidence of the Aruba incident was proffered by the defendant through a series of text messages between the defendant and Brian Higgins, thus opening the door for the Commonwealth to rebut the defendant's misleading and inaccurate claims about what had occurred weeks prior in Aruba. This incident in Aruba seems to be also the turning point in the relationship, as the defendant told Brian Higgins that her relationship with the victim was, excuse me, very effed up situation.
Mhm.
As she observed the victim all over a friend's sister in the lobby of her hotel, and accused the victim of having hooked up with another girl, which of course played out over the course of a number of different texts. Also, evidence that prior to arriving at 34 Fairview, there was a reference to a woman the victim used to date. This, to me, goes a little far afield. As they were trying to find 34 Fairview, because they hadn't been there before, there was a reference to a girl that the defendant, that John O'Keefe used to date. And that was kind of a touch point. Like maybe it's over near, I can't remember her name. Maybe it's over near that house. Or maybe he's over there, right? They couldn't find John O'Keefe. Maybe he's over there.
They said that the house was, he couldn't find the house. So I think he was told that it was near the house of a girl he used to date.
Right. And then later on, when things had spiraled out of control in Karen Reed's mind, maybe he was over there. One of the possible landing spots.
Yeah.
Because he was, after all, you're a pervert, you're cheating on me. The jury should be permitted to hear from the witnesses of this Aruba incident who will rebut the characterizations made by the defendant to Brian Higgins. Such testimony would be offered through Laura Sullivan, Marietta Sullivan, and I still don't know which one of the sisters it was. Aaron O'Keefe and Juvenile KF, which is, of course, I think that's Kaylee. Not sure. There are two juveniles that we're not supposed to know who they really are. So let's see if there was anything else. The final thrust of this is evidence of the defendant's prior conduct is permissible, highly probative to show the defendant's state of mind, blah, blah, blah. I don't think any of that is untrue, but it was ruled prior to trial. This was too tenuous, too far removed. And the question becomes, does that reference to the text, change that the court's ruling? So I don't know. You're saying your vote is for not a chance in hell. That's your vote.
No, I need to know what's your position though.
My position is, in any other case, less likely. Now, I never deal in absolutes because you know how the law is, you know how courts are, you know how juries are. So I never deal in absolutes. But I think, all things being equal, it is more likely to be allowed in this case because of the apparent slant of the court in favor of the prosecution. And then I think about it that way. Well, what's the big deal? I mean, do you think there's enough here that's really going to turn any sort of curiosity the jury might have into, oh my God, she must have run him over?
That's the reason why I don't think it should be admitted. So, to admit it is just basically saying that she was in some type of 4-week fury, and that's why she ran him over. And I agree with the judge's initial ruling. It was just too tenuous, especially because, they went out, they might have had like a little bit of conflict that night, but there was alcohol involved. And, then there's an audience involved. You're always a little bit elevated when there's an audience involved. I don't think the Aruba thing has anything to do with that night.
Yeah. And what happens in Aruba stays in Aruba, I hear. So,
that's what they say.
That's possible. Okay, so I thought what we would do is go through some of the testimony and just kind of riff on it a little bit, see if you get your thoughts on. This is primarily, all day today was the third day of mostly cross-examination of Mr. Bukhenik. Of course, the sergeant from the Massachusetts State Police who was the supervisor of Michael Proctor, who is so far curiously missing from the proceedings. We're not sure if that's going to continue or not, but it was not a good day for Mr. Bukhenik, primarily because
of the subordinate investigators that
if you're the supervisor and your underling screws up as badly as Proctor did, leading to his firing, I mean, don't you take some of the hit for that?
So, question: has he gotten the? Does the defense have the full report on why he was terminated?
He's testified today, so I have to qualify this because I'm not sure I believe anything that I hear from these guys. But he said he never got the federal report that led to the termination. All he knows is he was terminated, and that's all he would testify to.
Okay.
So, again, I don't believe that. I believe that he's seen it all, and it was probably part of the investigation, a very important part of the investigation, I would think. And remember, he got 5 days vacation time stripped away for whatever they determined his role was. 5 days vacation time, right? Give me a break.
Supervise.
Yes.
The whole point of having supervision and a chain of command is to establish a certain amount of, for lack of a better phrase, quality control of the subordinates.
Yes.
That would also include quality control over the subordinates' investigations.
Yes.
On August 17th, 2022, you were in a group text with the following individuals: Michael Proctor, Trooper Kukowski, a lieutenant named Fanning, and a trooper named DiCicco, D-I-C-I-C-C-O, correct?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
So this was the critical part of the testimony where he's reaffirming, dude, you're the supervisor. You know,
Yeah.
Handing you
here are all these things your
a
subordinates
document.
did.
Can
What's
you
the
tell
problem?
me if you recognize that document?
And he has to refresh his recollection quite a bit, you know.
But on that group text, it was his boss as well, right?
Yes, it was. It was. Fanning was on there as well. So, you know, if I'm in the jury, what do you think? Aren't you just dying to see Higgins, Proctor, maybe to a lesser degree Fanning?
Yes.
And what if you don't? What if you don't see them? They never materialize.
Well, I think it's a problem. If I don't see Proctor, it's a problem.
What is it? What would it be telling you if you don't see him?
That I can't value anything he's done, anything he's produced. Anything he's produced is worth mud.
So if you hear from others, like Higgins,
Mud.
You
what a
saw
horrible
that
job he's
document,
done.
On direct examination, I think you were shown the same document, correct?
that's not enough.
No.
It was different parts of it, but same. It's inclusive of within this document.
Okay. Let's start with this. You indicated that you did not see Michael Proctor's name on that document, correct?
Correct. His name is not on here.
But you do recognize that as being reflective, accurately reflective of the text chain that you were on August 17th, 2022, that group chat.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to do this a little bit backward, but bear with me. You do see the name Kukowski, correct?
I do.
You do see the name Fanning, correct?
I do.
You do see the name DiCicco, correct?
I do.
And you do see the name Bukhenik, correct?
No, it's misspelled, but I know they're probably referencing me.
Okay. The only other text or person texting on that chain is a code, a lengthy, almost like a URL code with no name, correct?
Yes, you're right.
And
Yes.
the only person that I didn't name, whose name I did not read off, it's obvious on that document, is Michael Proctor, correct?
Correct.
So deductive reasoning tells you that that is the code is Michael Proctor. Is that right?
I would agree with you, yes.
Okay. In that text chain, it starts with Trooper DiCicco sending a photograph, correct?
No.
May I approach?
Yes.
Okay, while they're doing
Turn
this,
to page 2683.
I'm going to stop them right there just for a moment. Thank you, Madeira Beach caregiver. I missed all the chat today, so if this has already been discussed, please lead me there. Am I hallucinating that a non-moving person is in the back seat of Higgins' Jeep at the PD parking lot? Okay, so I don't know. I've watched that video, like the Zapruder tape, film over and back and forth. The quality is, it ain't the best. And so I'm not seeing anything I could definitively say is a person. There are lots of shadows. I'd like to be able to confirm. I don't know, Afi, if you've seen it to the degree that you would need to.
Background on that, because I don't know.
Yeah, it's this is not high fidelity stuff. It's rough, and so I'm not sure it's if it's anything, let alone a hulking mass of a human form. But I appreciate the imagination.
I like that.
Do you
I'm
see a
looking
photograph there?
when he went to
Yes,
the
I do.
police department at 5 a.m., right?
Yeah. This was at 1. Let's see when this arrival was, because he was there in his Jeep. 1:27 arrival, 1:27 a.m. arrival, and he was in and to the office and out, and he left at 1:45. So,
Do we know why he did that?
well, there's a lot of speculation. He was on his phone at some point. Nobody knows for sure what he was talking about or to whom, because that phone disappeared. So we believe when he left, that's where he went. He went to the Cape, to the joint base where he had access as a former military man, and snapped his SIM card and broke his phone and threw it in a trash can, which is what you do.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a federal agent who's pretty well aware of issues with evidence. What I want to find is, we're getting to, everybody remembers the text, right, from the first trial that Proctor had to read, right? Well, in this case,
That's what it says, yes.
This guy is reading them. And again, he was the recipient. He did chime in on a couple of them, but let's listen to how he handles this.
Michael Proctor responded yet again. Is that right?
That's correct.
And in reference to Mr. Yanetti's photograph, he wrote, "I hate that man. I truly hate him." Correct?
That's what it says.
There's a trooper by the name of Moore, M-O-O-R-E, correct?
There is.
And he disliked Trooper Proctor's phrase, his statement, "No nudes so far," correct?
That's what it says.
Did that indicate to you that Moore was disappointed that Trooper Proctor, Michael Proctor, had not found naked pictures of Miss Reed as yet?
I don't know what that indicated for Mr. Moore.
And then you responded to the phrase, "Funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone," correct?
I acknowledged that text message being sent.
You acknowledged it by liking it, correct? With a thumbs up.
I acknowledged it by responding with a thumbs up emoji.
Okay, let me ask you this. What does thumbs up mean to you, Afi?
So it could mean that you like it, or it could mean exactly what he said, acknowledging it. I think that's just like a blurred line. So, and especially, let me just say, like, emojis mean different things to different groups of people, depending on your profession, your age level, whether you're in school, what level of school you're in or not, and what's available. Some people like use the whole bank of emojis to respond. Some people just use whatever pops up. So I think I would say he's just acknowledging it, and that's the only thing you can acknowledge.
Okay, so you give him a break on this. I will say, depending on what kind of phone you have, like, iPhones obviously have their own special language. You emphasize something, you can love something, you can like something. Whereas some phones, like Galaxies, they don't correspond, so you wouldn't get the emoji that matches that descriptor. You just get the word. emphasized. So,
Right.
but here's my point. He's the supervisor. At this point, when he hears the retarded comment, the no nudes comment, don't you think he should step in and say, dude, knock that off? That's inappropriate. It's unprofessional. And I don't even care if he really thinks that, but he should be smart enough to know as a supervisor, this is the time to make your stand. And I don't think thumbs up is the way to do that.
But imagine being that comfortable with your supervisor. It means you do it all the time.
Yeah, that's why I'm thinking Bukhenik didn't care really, but he should have been smart enough to know to basically make it look like he cared and
Right.
make it look like he was a supervisor and not just one of the boys. Right?
I agree.
Yeah,
The
horrible.
fact is, Trooper Proctor told you, his supervisor, in this series of text messages, that he was going through Miss Reed's phone. Is that right?
Correct.
And he also informed you, his supervisor, that he was going through her phone looking for nudes or naked pictures of her on her phone. Correct?
He did not tell me that he was going through naked pictures, for naked pictures through the phone.
He wrote, no nudes so far, right?
That is what is written, yes.
What did you think he was looking for when he wrote that phrase?
I don't know what he was looking for.
What would be a reasonable interpretation of what Michael Proctor was looking for when he wrote, no nudes so far?
I don't know.
Motorcycles, handbags, pair of
It's so
shoes,
easy for him to say. He was
or
my
naked pictures of.
Yeah.
He was looking for some information and just chiming in, nothing yet. Just some casual fun.
And you know, somebody with an odd sense of humor like me, I could see, I wouldn't write that phrase per se, but I can see making it sound like, yeah, I'm just looking for stuff, haven't found anything incriminating yet. In that tone, in that vein. But by being so evasive, it makes it sound even worse.
Right.
I mean, there's no way to put a great spin on it. But at least, like I'm looking through her purse, haven't found any hundreds yet.
Right.
No
like here, not yet.
Yeah. Anyway, okay.
Miss Karen Reed.
Oh,
His mission was to go through the phone to look for digital evidence that's related to the crime. The fact that he wrote no nude so far, I cannot comment on.
You cannot comment on, or you don't want to comment on?
I don't know what he was looking for in that specific time.
You certainly did nothing. You took no action to stop him from potentially looking for naked pictures of my client, correct?
That's correct.
Supervisor of the year.
In fact, last week you testified that in your view, Michael Proctor handled himself in this investigation with integrity. That's what you said, correct?
That's correct.
Do you stand by that testimony?
The investigation was handled with integrity and honor.
Do you stand by your testimony that Michael Proctor conducted himself during the course of this investigation with integrity?
Yes, I do.
He also called her retarded, correct?
That is what's written.
That's what's written? That's a very passive way of saying it, Sergeant. That's what's written, or that's what he wrote?
That's what he wrote.
And that's what you read?
I have no memory of reading that. I acknowledged him going through the phone on my Apple Watch. I have no memory of him writing retarded on a text message.
And you'll agree that that is one of the most vile and insensitive and incendiary terms one could use in modern society. Retarded, correct?
That is correct.
And in fact, through your response to that vile phrase, you encouraged it because you liked it with a thumbs up, correct?
Objection. Sustained.
Did you encourage that statement by Michael Proctor by liking it with a thumbs up?
I don't know if it encouraged him, but So I cannot speak to
But
that.
that's what you did.
I acknowledge the text message being sent.
I want to be clear. These text messages were sent to you by your direct report, by your direct subordinate, correct?
That's correct.
And there was even someone on that text chain who was more senior than you, Lieutenant Fanning, right?
That's correct.
Michael Proctor was both your partner and the lead investigator on this case when he wrote that, correct?
He's a subordinate, and he was the case officer.
Can't even say lead investigator. Can't do it.
This thread, text thread, contains communications between a subordinate, the person you call the case officer. By the way, let me ask you another question. Did you ever, during the course of the investigation in which you were a part, the sustained findings, the internal affairs investigation, did you ever review Colonel Noble's determinations about your subordinate, Michael Proctor?
Objection. Did you review them?
No, Your Honor, I did not.
I don't know, give me your take on this judge thing. This is something she does all the time and it drives me crazy. Instead of just saying sustained, because there was an objection, or overruled, in this case, it would have been overruled because she then asks the question. Instead of letting the question stand from whoever's asking it, she decides she is better at just asking the question of the witness. Does that bother you, or is it just me?
It doesn't bother me if she thinks that she can get an answer from the witness, because sometimes, you'll deal with the witness that will, just give you these circuitous answers over and over again. And they're a little bit more intimidated by the judge.
Okay.
It doesn't bother me. If she does it all the time, it might, I don't have that much experience with her. I don't watch, but
it's definitely a pattern where it just comes off as her feeling like, let me handle this. And maybe it is more effective in getting an answer. Or maybe I'm just hypersensitive.
What would Colonel Noble call Michael Proctor's title in this case? Do you think he'd call him the case officer or the lead investigator? What is your experience with Massachusetts State Police in that regard?
Objection. Sustained.
Does the whisper bother you?
What's that?
Does the whisper
Notwithstanding the fact that a subordinate was on this text chain and a supervisor to you, was Lieutenant Fanning one of your supervisors?
Yes.
Notwithstanding the fact that a subordinate was on this text chain and one of your supervisors was on this text chain, you felt comfortable enough within this group of law enforcement to actually like when the subordinate refers to a suspect as retarded, correct?
I acknowledge the text message with a thumbs up emoji.
Do you believe that? Well, let me ask you another question, a predicate question. You were also comfortable enough with that text chain to receive information that your subordinate was looking for naked pictures on a suspect's phone, a woman, no less. Correct? You took no remedial action against Trooper Proctor for that, correct?
No, I did not, no.
Do you believe, as you sit here, that that was a misuse of power and authority by a Massachusetts State Police officer?
By myself or somebody else?
By Michael Proctor.
Misuse of what?
Misuse of authority and power. To go through a suspect's phone, to get her phone using the authority and the power vested in that officer by the community members. That's the power that you derive, correct? You work for the public. Would you agree?
Objection. Sustained.
Do you believe it was a misuse of his authority and power to use Massachusetts State Police Authority to go through her phone and look for naked pictures of her?
Objection. Sustained.
Do you believe it was a misuse of authority or power to go through her phone and potentially look for nudes?
Objection.
Sustained.
Okay, what do you think about those objections and them being sustained?
I think everyone was properly sustained except the last one. I think he phrased that one properly. But I also think she was throwing a bone to the state.
Really?
The-
Yeah. I mean, he's making the point, as I've mentioned with a number of his questions, the answer was irrelevant. You know, the question was what he wanted to get out in front of the jury. And so in this case, it's 3 times he gets to say it.
Yeah.
Let me ask it differently. Did you think his text was appropriate?
I don't remember reading that text.
As you sit here now, do you think that text is appropriate?
No, it is not.
Do you think it's professional?
No, it is not.
Do you think it shows integrity?
That text message does not show integrity.
Do you think it shows honor? A word I expect you hold dear.
That text message does not show honor.
On October 15th, 2022, you completed a performance review of Michael Proctor, correct?
That's correct.
Specifically, you were asked to rank his, quote, oral and written communication skills, end quote, correct?
Correct.
That's part of an overall evaluation and performance review, is that right?
Yes, overall 90-day, quarterly, annual review.
You were specifically asked to rank whether he effectively would whether members, your subordinates, would effectively communicate with others, both within and outside the department, in oral and written form, correct?
That's correct.
And you rated him as exceptional, a number 4 rating out of 5, correct?
That's correct.
You actually went on to write and comment on Michael Proctor, and you wrote, quote, Trooper Michael Proctor displays professional demeanor, composure, dignity, and respect during the performance of his duties, and especially during his interactions with the public. This is seen during interviews with witnesses, suspects, as well as victims and their families, end quote. That was a statement you wrote about Michael Proctor, correct?
That is correct.
And this is after the text chain that we've just been talking about, where he calls Miss Reed retarded and references looking for nude photographs of her, correct?
That is correct.
Was your statement in that evaluation true or false?
It was true.
You knew Michael Proctor's proclivities, obviously. He told them to you, correct?
The term proclivities, what does
You
that mean?
knew
Need a dictionary.
what he tended to do, what he wanted to do through his own comments, to look for nudes on a woman's phone, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You were aware, sir, that he had received evidence in a case. Evidence that doesn't belong to him, belongs to the Massachusetts State Police, at least at that point, correct? The cell phone.
I was aware that he received a cell phone, yes.
And he used that power and the authority to go through that cell phone and look for nudes of my client, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
During the same course of your evaluation, you were also asked to evaluate his investigative ability, correct?
That's correct.
You rated him the highest standard in the Massachusetts State Police, outstanding, a 5, correct?
That's correct.
And you went on to write about Michael Proctor in the commentary below that rating to justify it. Is that right?
That is accurate, yes.
You wrote, quote, Trooper Proctor has had a high-profile caseload with a lot of eye and pressure from external sources during the first day of the investigation. He handled himself and all the case with utmost professionalism and competence. He is able to investigate his case thoroughly and with strict integrity, end quote. correct?
Which quarterly review was this?
This is the same one.
Probably all of them. Okay, we get the picture there. Let me ask you this: in the first trial, Proctor was really fessing up to all of this unprofessional activity. Now we have his supervisor. What do you think's more powerful?
Well, I didn't catch that. I only caught a little bit of Proctor in the first trial.
Well, just imagine, here's a guy confessing to his own sins, as it were, and now his boss is basically now in his place at this point, confessing to a subordinate's sins, a guy he supervised.
Well, I think what's the first trial I'd say would be more compelling because you actually have Proctor there and you can see him getting eviscerated. Here, I think it's all about imagination, and there's a lot more work on the defense, because let me tell you something that I don't think he's hammering home is, why did you not read the report of somebody under your control? Why didn't you read the report providing the reasons why he was dismissed? The only reason you wouldn't read the report is so you cannot be questioned on it. I would hammer that home and then work on imagination at that point, since we don't have Proctor there. Because what was in that report? My God. And who else conspired to not read that report? Because you would want to know, like, it's just responsible. It's just best practice to find out what somebody, your subordinate, is doing. Right.
So that maybe it doesn't happen again. So that maybe you become a better supervisor.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. I agree completely. I want to zoom ahead now because I want to get to the Sallyport video, which is always, a high point. There was some concern based on his direct whether we would get there because it was touched on but not really dwelled upon. But it did come up, so I'm going to zoom into it here and then we'll back in. This part I'm going to skip. In fact, it may be a separate video that I've got to open up. This is all the video you're talking about. In fact, let's see if I can find that video of the Jeep just so we can look at it for a second to see if it truly is something we can see. Okay, so there's the Jeep up here.
Okay.
So I guess, if you, I don't know. I could barely see the snowplow on the damn thing. So as Madeira Beach had asked, I'm zero help. That's all I can tell you because I just don't see it. I just don't see it. Could be, maybe not. Don't know. Anyway, so let me get rid of this video. Bring us back out here while I'm doing some magic. I'm going to pull up the second one, which is most of the, I think, the afternoon. And so the key question was, okay, if the prosecution didn't get in too deeply into the Sallyport video and the, of course, inverted video, what's going to happen on cross? So they're going to be cut off, and they were not. I think it was a mistake for the prosecution not to admit what they did not admit in the first trial and were ambushed on, which was, oh, by the way, Bukhenik, this witness, isn't that video inverted? Would you have gone into this case knowing that that's lying in wait in the bushes for you? Would you want to get ahead of that on direct or do what they did here, which was ignore it again?
No, bring it, especially if the defense is going to bring it up. Bring it out. Bring out any of your points and explain it. Massage it for us.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand that thinking. It doesn't make any sense at all to me. Okay, so let's enjoy some of this video because as everybody knows, this is, the beginning of the end, in my opinion, for any trust you might have in Canton PD. You're looking at this video. I'm still in my brain, not sure how they create a mirror image, just the way the system works. Because you look at it, and unless you see words, you have no reason to think this is inverted, right? It looks, I don't know that if I knew that Sallyport, I might immediately go, oh, wait a minute, something's wrong. But I don't. And you can see, look right down here in the corner. I don't know if you can see this very well, but right down here in the corner, they have that like a vintage police car there. I don't know if you can see it or not, but right here, it's POLICE. It's backwards on the trunk of that car.
Okay.
I didn't notice that right off in the first trial, but once I did, it was like, bing, something wrong here. Something needs to be explained.
Can you watch and tell me if you see Mr. Proctor do anything or move in any way? Let's go ahead and play it forward. Pause. Did you see any volitional movement by Mr. Proctor as the tow truck driver moved past him?
Yes, it appears if that is his head, it shifted weight.
Okay. Let's go ahead and play it forward. Stop. Did you see a person that appeared to morph toward the back of the vehicle? Right there.
Magic.
There
It's
is some
magic.
anomaly there with the footage, so it could possibly be used to describe that what took place.
Can you recognize that person?
I cannot know.
They're all
Indicated
dressed like
previously,
ninjas.
Does that person look large or small in stature
I can't tell.
as compared to, for instance, Michael Proctor, whose head you can see above the car? What about this person? Taller, shorter than Michael Proctor?
I can't tell from here. I can't.
You indicated that Chief Berkowitz was a smaller statured person, correct?
I never said that.
I'm sorry?
I didn't know his height.
Larger or smaller? Generally. How about this? Larger or smaller than you?
He's shorter than me.
Okay. Can you tell whether or not that is Chief Berkowitz?
I cannot know.
Okay, let's go ahead and play it for him. And
Okay, hold on a second. We have an update here on my sleuthing. The Deer Beach caregiver now saying that when he opens the door every time, obviously the dome light goes on. We're talking about the Jeep with the snowplow in the front. I'm going to have to circle back and give that some serious consideration, but she's saying that when the light comes on, you can see this form better in the back seat. So that's a homework assignment. So let me know what you learn on that.
a little bit further. Pause. What does it appear that Mr. Proctor does at this point in the video?
He's walking.
Okay, do you see anything in his hand?
Oh, dueling errors.
I cannot tell from the video, but he might be carrying something.
Remember we looked previously at a portfolio, black portfolio. Does it appear that he may have a black portfolio in his hand?
That is very likely, but I don't know exactly what he's carrying.
Okay, let's go ahead and play this forward. Okay, and did it appear that somebody just appeared at the front right?
Bing! Another magic trick.
Or sorry, the right-hand side of the screen toward the front of the SUV as well?
Yes, it appears that way, yes.
Okay. Let's take this down.
Did he just flip a bunch of stuff together?
More.
And this guy in the orange who just sits there like a statue the whole time.
Person?
I think it's a person.
Oh my god. Okay.
Now they get to, this next video, which
Sergeant.
is the uninverted, I'm calling it. This is the way it really looks.
It appears to be the mirror image of the previous footage. I don't know the exact timestamp there, but
Can we increase the date and time? Do you see, can you read the date and time stamp on this Chiron?
I cannot know.
It's because it's backward, correct?
I can't read it. I can't make it out, sir.
Can you make it any bigger, Mr. Wolk?
So basically, having uninverted the video, now those words are backwards on the Chiron. But when they move this over to the right just a touch, you'll see that police that I was talking about being backwards on the other video is now not backwards.
Based on me recognizing some of the digits, it does appear to be backwards.
Okay, let's look at the whole screen again.
See that police right there? Right there. Whoops, right there in the
Sergeant.
bottom. That's now
Let's play this
proper.
forward for just a quick second.
Wow.
So this thing I've been thinking is a person is some sort of stand of some sort. I don't know what it is.
Like they fight it in the practice.
Is that what it is? No wonder
Yeah.
it looks so much like a person. I thought it was something like a piece of
You
equipment.
see Michael Proctor in this video?
I believe that's him, yes.
And which side, and let's start with this. Do you agree that this is the correct version of the camera angle and the SUV as it pulled into the Salvatore?
This is the footage, the way that is depicted right now is very accurately depicts, or very accurately represents what I remember from being there.
In fact, this side of the vehicle that we're looking at that's closest to us, that I'm highlighting on the screen to your right, that is in fact the driver's side of the vehicle, not the passenger side of the vehicle. Is that correct?
That is correct.
The far side over here would be the right rear of the vehicle, correct?
Yes, sir.
Which area is Michael Proctor walking to? The left rear or the right rear in this footage?
It appears if that's him, he's walking to the right rear of the vehicle.
Can we play this forward?
Now, you could argue, of course he was. That's what he wanted to look at. He wanted to see a little more about the taillight, right? Nothing
Right.
nefarious.
And do you see Mr. Proctor's head above the SUV?
Yes.
And watch him as the tow truck driver walks by. Did he appear to move?
He shifted weight, yes.
And it appears that there's another person that showed up in the footage, an anomaly of some sort, walking off screen left to right. Is that right?
That's what it appears, yes.
Is Mr. Proctor still at the right rear taillight?
Oh,
area?
wow.
He's in that general vicinity, yes.
Another ghost.
Let's go ahead and play it forward.
You can see him better from this angle.
Oh, wow. What happened?
A little bit further. Can you see anything in his hand? Let me just ask it closed in. Do you see the portfolio in his hand?
It would not be unlikely that it's there, but I can't tell exactly what it is in his hand.
Let's play it forward. Do you see anything in his hand now as his arm?
Yes, yes.
Does it appear to be consistent with the black portfolio that we saw earlier?
Yes, it is, yes.
Let's move forward. And he is now off screen, correct?
Yes.
So, in point of fact, Sergeant, when you were asked previously whether the prior video fairly and accurately depicted what you recall as it pertains to the SUV and the Sally Port, that was not quite true, correct?
I'll allow it.
The way I understood the question is what I'm watching accurately depicts what's taking place. It is. Just because it's a mirror image doesn't mean that it's not recording what the actions and what is transpiring.
But you would agree, at least, that the previous video showed exactly the opposite of what was true and correct, not just a mirror image. What is left is right, and what is right is left, correct?
Stages to that form.
Would you agree that in point of fact, a mirror image video is not a true and accurate depiction of what's depicted in a scene?
I think it just is a mirror image of what's taking place. If you see someone walking in or driving a vehicle and it's depicting the action of the vehicle being pulled in, and if it's mirrored, it's pulling in from left to right or right to left. It's still documenting the activity that's taking place.
Or if someone walks to the left rear of the vehicle versus the right rear of the vehicle, those two things will be switched, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you'll agree that the prior video that we showed, that you and I just talked about, the inverted video, appeared for all intents and purposes to show Michael Proctor stay away from the from the right rear taillight, walk all the way around, and position himself to the left rear taillight. You'd agree with that, correct?
Do you agree with that? Allow it.
It appeared that that is what was happening, but he was standing next to the taillight that was already damaged.
But in the corrected video, which is this one, it actually shows unequivocally that Michael Proctor walked directly to the right rear taillight portion of this SUV. Correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. In the corrected video, this video here, this unequivocally shows that Michael Proctor walked toward the right rear area of that SUV, where the right taillight is. Correct?
Yes.
All right. So, watching a witness squirm can either be satisfying if it's you're cross-examining the person, or helpless feeling if it's your witness. When you hear an answer like this, well, I said true and accurate, but it could be true and accurate even if it's inverted. Come on, it's still true and accurate. I mean, to say that with a straight face, you're either an idiot or a very good liar.
One thing about police officers and that the jurors don't know, but that you and I know, is when they answer questions, whether on direct or cross, they are going to be assertive, they're going to be quick, and they're going to look at the jurors, to just show that confidence. So I just have such a low level of confidence in his testimony, because nothing about what the Proctor did was wrong, or there could be just like complete innocence about it, but it's like the way you're having to pull answers from him. It's like, well, what was he doing?
Yeah, and I think you're right, because as I suggested, he could have been looking at the taillight that was damaged to whatever degree, because he
Right.
needed to see to whatever degree it was damaged.
He's a
That's
police investigator.
understandable. Right. But when you have to show the video was inverted and nobody's
Mhm.
telling you that from the Commonwealth, that you have to out that to the jury, and then you've got, people popping on here and popping on over there, and it just makes you distrust everything.
Yeah.
And there may be a darn good reason for it. But here's what I think. When this thing gets wrapped up, as I expect it will, not unlike the first trial, and you're standing there saying, "What the hell happened?"
Mhm.
A lot of things flying around, a lot of stories, a lot of evidence, a lot of theories, but I don't know what the hell happened that night. That's not good for the prosecution.
So this is another thing. So I'm watching the opening statements. It's like two completely different stories. Completely different stories. So I don't know what happened, and I don't have any faith in their investigation either.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
really want to know, what happened to his arm? Was it his left arm that was kind of like ripped up? Like did he get that from hit? Like that?
Yeah.
I have questions.
Well, that's where that's like a second level of the
Mhm.
analysis, because first you have to believe he was hit, right,
Right.
by the car. That's the first level. Then you have to believe that all those injuries sustained were as a result of that contact. So
Mhm.
this is my attack light, because I think the only way you get those kinds of wounds is as if this light becomes part Chloe.
Mhm.
It just doesn't make sense to me logically. I would need some pretty damn good expert to tell me that's what caused those injuries that look on
Mhm.
their face like claw marks, scratch marks, bite marks, something.
Right.
Shards of somehow, shards of plastic. I guess possible if they're so uniform, possible. But to get there, I gotta know for sure that it was his body contacting this light that caused that damage to the light before it could cause the damage to his arm.
Hmm.
I just
No,
think it's a tough sell.
it is. I have so many questions there, like just little critical points that I don't think the prosecution is going to be able to just gloss over. I want to know why the family, what is it, the Albert family, why they sold the family dog or rehomed the.
Rehomed,
Yeah,
yes.
I need to know. You love a dog, 7 years, that's a family member. You don't just rehome the dog.
Yeah, yeah. There are a lot of folks think that Chloe is no longer with us, and I don't know if you heard the other day, and this was news to me, that the family that now supposedly has Chloe, the family they met to get a dental impression of the jaw, so they can rebut the Dr. Marie Russell testimony, where she's the dog bite expert.
Yeah.
She's going to testify all those injuries were from Chloe, or from a dog, not necessarily Chloe. They're going to then contest that by saying, well, we did a mold of the of the dog's mouth
Mhm.
and they don't match up, which
Okay.
is so insane. In theory, sure, because I know every time I've been bitten by a dog, I stand perfectly still and make sure that they get a nice impression of the bite marks,
That
because
was a fight. That was a fight. Like those wounds were the.
it's always a fight. It's a dog.
Yeah.
you know so yeah, anyway, so that's going to be their argument, and they found the dog in the rehomed home. I think it was in Vermont, from what I recall. I don't think that was on the record, but the fact that they found the dog, they renamed the dog Kara. I think it's Kara, or yeah, I think it's, or is it Cora? Anyway, it's a new name.
How?
Can you imagine that? I saw some chat on our channel where they said that it's not unusual for a dog to have the name changed, generally in a circumstance where the dog has been mistreated or has come from a situation in which you're trying to, this is dog psych 101, I guess. You're trying to not remind the dog of what it left behind, of the circumstances. So you change the name. So, now from what we know, Chloe had a couple of skirmishes, but it wasn't like the dog was mistreated, right? Just has a behavioral issue.
Who are the new owners? Family members? I'd have a question.
Not that we're aware.
Okay.
Not that we're aware. And there was apparently some go-between that handled the transition from the Alberts to the new family.
Interesting.
Yeah. And again, I don't know enough about that kind of stuff to know. I would never rehome a dog. I'm sorry. I would never do it.
Answers. I mean, I want those questions answered though. Like they're just, I have 30 questions that I need answered before I would be able to convict.
Wow. 30. Just give me a few. Let's go into it.
Oh, Lord, hold on. Okay, my first issue is the Albert family, right? Everybody who was involved in the investigation. I think that the wait, is it called the MET, the emergency medical professional?
Yeah, the EMT folks. Yeah.
There we go. Who allegedly heard Karen say, "I hit him. I hit him." She is supposedly best friends with one of the Albert daughters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, although she tried to distance herself during her testimony. She tried to make it sound like, well, we're kind of friends, and the next thing you know, they're at a baby shower together, and they're at various outings together. Yeah, and it's that town and those three towns, Stoughton, Dedham, Canton, very incestuous. The folks. If you look up Townie, you'll have those people's pictures in there. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
No,
in this case, it just leads to those kinds of. It ain't a 6th degree of separation. It's usually a 1,
Right.
To your point, they're all, theoretically in bed together.
Okay. So look, next thing, when O'Keefe was supposedly down right outside the Albert house, apparently, was it 12 people at least who would have walked outside and would have immediately seen him if he was there?
It was a parade. We certainly haven't heard testimony to that number, but it's a significant number we know. And so far we've had testimony, I think, of 3 or 4 that have either left the house or been in a car in front of the house at or about the time that would have happened. So, and they've used, let me see how you appreciate this creativity. 2 of them, Jen McCabe being one, and I always forget that it might have been Knoxam. I can't remember for sure, but Jen McCabe said because the wind was blowing, it was getting cold. She was kind of like, hunkered down, curled up against the elements. So was not looking anywhere to her right, which is where the body would have been if it were there. She was walking down the walkway just to get into the car, got into the car, had a conversation with others in the car, including, hey, who wants peanut butter sandwich? Because there was some peanut butter in the car from a grocery store shop. And so she's totally taken herself out of any possibility, she thinks, of seeing John O'Keefe's body on the front yard. Matt McCabe is driving. Haven't heard from him yet. I can't wait to hear. I was driving with my eyes closed. That's usually the way I drive. So I missed it. Because if you're in a car on that curb, you're 10, 15 feet max, and there's a dusting of snow. How do you miss 6'2", 200 pounds? I don't know. So the other one, whose name I can't remember, Knoxon, she said it was a little slippery on the sidewalk. So she was looking down at her feet the whole time. So she had no reason to look off to her right and see what was on the lawn.
If you're a grown adult human and you've made it to 25, 28 in the world, you have done so because you have some sort of peripheral vision and some sort of sense of self-preservation. You're going to be like naturally looking in different directions, especially at night. So I don't buy any of that.
Yeah, I don't either. And maybe if you grew up in a video game, video games, you don't really get much peripheral vision. But that's what I'm seeing as the planned excuses for not seeing him.
Okay, who was the person? And if you cannot answer this for me,
I probably can't.
I cannot you, but whomever you. Okay, again, if you can't answer this for me, I can't give you a guilty vote. Why were you texting? How long does it take a body to die in the cold, or whatever the whatever?
Yes.
Why were you? Was that McCabe who looked that up? Why? Were you
Yes, it was. Okay,
Yeah.
here's my take on this, and it seems to resonate with some folks. First of all, you have to assume. First assumption is that Karen Reed actually said in that car at 5 something in the morning when they first found
Right.
John O'Keefe's body, or just before they found it. Look up hypothermia. Search hypothermia. That's the testimony. She asked Jen McCabe to Google or search hypothermia. How does that become how long to die in the cold?
Okay.
How does that in her brain transition to, there's Oasis Cat, how long to die in cold? How does that happen?
It didn't. Listen, Brian Albert called Brian Higgins. They said it was a butt dial at 2:22 a.m. Then Jennifer McCabe, I wrote this down, I don't know when, she Google searched at 2:27 a.m. before she can.
Well, that's what some people say.
Cold. Okay. How long to die in the cold? And then she deleted it. If you cannot give me something reasonable, I cannot vote guilty.
I'm with you. Now, their expert has said that it wasn't, and this expert, if you didn't see her, if you want to just get annoyed, this is the testimony to look for, just for the hell of it. You go, I feel like getting annoyed. Look up Jennifer, what's her last name? I can't remember now. Jennifer. Jessica, sorry.
Jessica.
I always think of, Jessica Hyde. Jessica Hyde was their expert. Her testimony is that there was not a search at 2:27. No. That tab was opened up for searching some scores of a team that their daughter was going to be joining as a club team. That tab was left open. Therefore, any subsequent searches, including the one at 6:23 and 6:24, how long to die in cold, relate back to that tab, not the actual time of the search. So you have to buy that. First, you got to buy that premise. And I don't know that in light of other stuff, I'm not sure I do. If somebody just gave me that and it wasn't the critical moment that it is in this case, I might go, okay, I don't know enough about how this shit works. I don't know. I don't know with opening tabs, closing tabs. I don't know. But it's way too convenient in this particular case. And it still doesn't get me past. I don't care when she made the search. 2:27 is obviously bad because that's before anybody on the Karen Reed side, unless she did it, knew where John O'Keefe was, right?
Right.
Who would know if it happened at 2:27? Would it be because there was something that happened in the house? You kicked John O'Keefe out, tossed him out into the snow, and you're just kind of curious, how long before it's a problem, right, for him to be out there. So then you search how long to die in the cold.
No, I would think that, well, yes. But also, I was listening to some testimony, and they believe that the body was moved. He was killed in a warm environment and then put in the cold, and maybe that was like a setup. But I don't. I like.
It's a theory. It's a theory that something happened in the house, that he either died in the house, became unconscious in the house, was beat up in the house, and then repositioned to the front yard. But I still can't get past why anybody would. This is your friend. You love this person. Somebody asked me to check hypothermia, which is not a bad request. How long do we have? Why don't you search how long to survive in the cold? Why would you say how long to die in the cold? Unless you want somebody to be dead. So even if you believe the time frame given, that tells me a lot about the person who crafted that search.
That's a really good point.
Thank you. So today, and this relates somewhat to the body in the snow situation, they got testimony from Bukhenik that when they got to John O'Keefe's body, underneath him, which we know, of course, had his phone underneath him, but they found very little snow underneath him, almost just no snow.
Right.
So that suggests that he'd been there before the snow got heavy, which suggests it was closer to 12:30 than maybe 2:33 or whenever it may have been if it happened as a result of something in the house. I thought that was great for the prosecution. I think it's helpful. What I don't know that I need to know is how much, if it's an inch of snow and a warm body is laying on it, I think that's going to go. I think it's going to disappear. I don't care how cold it is outside. If you put a warm body on top of it, fluffy, inch of snow, I don't think there's going to be much left of it.
I don't have experience with the snow. I'm from LA. Well, I'm from live in LA. I don't know this. I lived in Jersey and it was snowing, and I had never seen the snow plower people. They plow the snow and then they leave it in like mountains on the side
Of course.
The
Yeah.
first time I saw that, I was like, oh, it's gonna all melt in the morning and I'll be gone. And it just stayed.
Yeah. No, I'm from California myself, Northern California. So I felt the same way until I moved here now almost, I think it has been 20 years. Holy cow. But yeah, you used to shopping centers that have just, mountains
Mhm.
of snow where they've just pushed everything to the side, and that stuff takes forever to melt. So, yeah.
That was-
So
You're
what's that?
in Jersey?
No, I'm in Connecticut now. When I was in New York for a long time, I'm here 2-3 years now. So you're thinking that, well, you have no snow experience, so I have to disqualify you. as
No.
an
We've
expert
had snow.
witness.
It snowed like three or four times in my lifetime in Louisiana.
Okay.
Test me on it.
Yeah. How long were you in Jersey, and why were you there?
Oh my God. So I used to practice international criminal law. So I was in South Orange. I loved
Oh,
it.
okay.
And, yeah, I worked in New York. And I was there for about 2 years. And that was the first time I just ever had to walk to work. And I had to buy a snow fit, like a ski fit. So I'd have
So
a
like a
suit.
full body suit of some sort?
It was
Whoa.
so cold. It was like blizzardry every day. It was crazy.
Yep. Well, it's a shock when you come from the West. I came out here and middle of February, which is
Yeah.
legit. It's going to be bad. I was in New Jersey. I was in Secaucus because I went to work at a current affair. We shot the show there at the WOR. I think it's WOR studios are there. I think they're still there. So I was technically in Jersey, and I would make that little drive to the studio every day. In Jersey, there's no such thing as a little drive. Everything is a pain in the ass. It is the worst. When I was kind of interim because the family was back in California, hadn't figured out where we're going to end up here. All I had to do was drive Jersey streets for about 2-3 weeks. I said, there's not a chance in hell I'm moving to New Jersey. I don't care what else is going on, because we heard they have some great schools and all these other pluses. I said, I can't do it. So I get up on March 30th to go to work, and there's snow on the ground. And I'm like, this may not work for me. March 30th, there's snow.
Look, Michael, black ice. I almost flew into traffic on black ice. I did not know what black ice was. I was like loving my life on my way to the train station, just like smiling at the birds, talking to the trees, and then I'm like
sideways.
That just it was really bad. But no, I've never driven on a New Jersey street. Only trains and walking.
Yeah, and I love the trains out here, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. But yeah, those roads in Jersey, they're so weird. They can't even have a normal U-turn. A normal U-turn, you're going, let's say, 2-3 lanes in each direction. You pull to the inner left and you make a U-turn. Oh, no, not in Jersey. You pull to the hard right and you make a 90-degree turn for another light and then a second turn to do your 180. I don't know who's doing their planning, but it's a disaster. So anyway, let's look at a little more of this before I let you go. I got sidetracked.
Can I plug in? I need to plug in my charger. Is that okay?
Oh, sure. Yeah, because I don't want you to disappear.
And you'll also agree that this video was taken before any taillight material was ever found at 34 Fairview, correct?
So important. Now listen to this series.
Can you zoom in on the time?
Not on this one. This is backwards.
I know that the SUV pulled into the garage, the Sally Port, at 5:35, and we were still on scene at 5:51, almost 52. So, yes, if that's timestamp before 5:51, before we left Canton PD, then yes, taillight pieces had already been found.
So 5:35, 5:37 is before the first taillight pieces were found. Right.
I'd have to see a timestamp of when they were exactly found, but if
Let
that...
me ask it a different way. 5:37, 535, 4545.
Yes.
This is so interesting, this part right here. We already had an admission that no pieces of taillight were found until the car was at the Sally port, right? Now we're fine-tuning that to say that while you were there, while you, Bukhenik, were at the Sally port, it's your understanding that none of the pieces had yet been found at the scene. And he sort of waffles on that. What do you think of that on balance, Afi, where you have, and I've got my list here of dates. I should know them by heart, but I don't. The dates they found pieces of taillight, and there were five different dates. I do know most of them by heart. 2/2, 2/10, 2/11, 2/12, and 2/18. Each of those days, they find more and more taillight pieces as the snow is melting. That's their position. Hey, the snow is melting, revealing new pieces. What do you think of that whole theory?
I think that can be something that 3 people got together and said, yeah, it makes sense if we say the snow is melting, so we're finding more. Because it's like if you're at a dinosaur excavation site, you're not going to just search a little bit and then, come back. Well, maybe you do come back the next day, but if time is of the essence, you're going to do everything you need to do right then and there because that's where the bones are. That's where
that night with the leaf blower, they had 7 officers on scene. The leaf blower, yes, the conditions were not the best. It wasn't whiteout, but nothing was found. Nothing. And 3 days later, when they come back, things start to pop. I think that's a problem for them. That again assumes they prove contact with the vehicle and that it does that kind of damage to the taillight. I think the second hurdle is far worse than the first. I think there could be some evidence that she nicks him, as she says in one of her interviews on TV, that she just taps him, brushes him, in his condition, he spins around and falls down. I mean, there's something, there's something. But to suggest that he was hit with such force that it would shatter this thing into 46 pieces, man, that is, it just, even with, what's that?
No, so what are they saying? I was wondering, the wound in his head, did he fall on ice? Did he fall on hard ice?
Well, we've had testimony, and I'm sure we're going to have more, that the ground was hard as a rock.
Okay.
So I think they're going to use that as a possible explanation for the laceration on the back of his head.
So she had to hit him so hard he flew into the air and then fell down and hit his head that hard. Like it couldn't just be she hit him and he fell, right?
I don't know. I've never hit my head so hard. I have a mound on the top of my head like a Klingon from falling off a ladder when I was 3 years old. My dad put me on the ladder. Oh, it's part of growing up. Woo! Right on my head, which explains quite a lot. But I've never had a big laceration on the back of my head that cuts, not quite to the skull, but it's pretty bad. Can that happen just by falling backwards on a rock or on a curb or something?
Okay. Question also. If something did happen in the house, is Karen just like a convenient villain here? Like they never really intended to set her up. It's just a convenient situation. The idea was that maybe there were some shenanigans going on in the house, and then he stumbled outside and fell out in the cold. Because I do have thoughts. When the police went to the house that morning, why did no one come out of the house to see what was happening in their front yard?
Yeah, I mean, all of these questions, and I appreciate that, you've got a life and you're not watching every single bit of this like so many of us are. Those are the exact questions that people want answers to, and we have not gotten those yet. And I'm not so sure we will.
I have notes.
I know. Well, obviously you're an attorney, so I can't stop you from taking notes. It's just gotta be, it's part of your blood. So so I think those are perfectly good questions that were never answered in trial number 1. I will wait to see what happens in trial number 2. Okay, so where do we go from here? What do you think about? My gut has been that a lot of the prosecution's case in chief has really been defensive, like really anticipating and expecting what's to come along from the defense. So I think we're going to see a much bigger defense case, a much shorter case in chief, and then maybe a bigger rebuttal case by the prosecution. What's your feeling on that kind of presentation?
I'm entertained by the defense. I feel like there's a lot of passion there. I feel like, Alan, is that his name? Alan Jackson. He's clear. He's vibrant. It seems like he is just full of seriousness and passion. Love it. I think I think Brennan is his name, the prosecutor. He's relying a lot on just technicality. What is the company? Is it Cellubrite? I think he's going to be relying on. Somebody pronounced it Cellubrite today.
Well, here's my take on that for what it's worth. They had the prosecution's guy was an employee of Cellubrite. And I've always said Cellubrite because it's CELLEBRITE, Cellubrite. This guy is high up in the business, in the company. And he said Cellubrite, unless I'm just missing an accent because he had a bit of an accent. So I've now converted to Cellubrite. So
Cellubrite. No, I've only heard it as Cellubrite, but someone with serious conviction today was like, well, maybe. Okay, but so I think that they're going to be relying on a lot of technicality. He was talking about the health monitor on his phone, the timing of and the temperature of the phone. I think that's all they have. And this theory that Karen was so angry she slammed onto the accelerator and hit him. I also have a question about their medical examiner. I was listening to somebody and they said the opening. Apparently, the prosecutor's own medical examiner said that he wasn't killed from being hit with the car or the
undetermined. That was undetermined. So they're not calling her. They're not calling her this time. They're bringing in somebody else, out of town gunslinger, who will somehow explain that they know what happened.
That's a problem for me.
Well, that's a problem. It should be a problem for every prosecutor's office. You know. To say, how do we prosecute this case where the cause and manner of death are basically unknown? I don't know, but they're doing it. Round number 2. There's one other thing I was going to ask you about. Oh, in the first trial, this relates to Jen McCabe, who is not a very popular human being these days. She had said in the first trial that at 12:45 she looked out the window, could still see the SUV there. We now know from subsequent information that SUV and Karen Reed's cell phone connected to John O'Keefe's home Wi-Fi at 12:36.
Okay.
So you've got a prosecution witness saying that she saw the car there 9 minutes after it connected with John O'Keefe's cell phone, cell system, his Wi-Fi. So you got to work around that. Here's what they came up with, and here's what I want your take on.
Okay.
First of all, she wasn't paying that much attention to the time, so that was her first kind of back step. Yeah, I really wasn't. I wasn't paying that much attention to it. So if she's not paying attention to it, but the first time she said it was 12:45, obviously that was used on cross to come back and haunt her, right? How do you get out from under such a specific recollection when it's thrown in your face like it was, and it doesn't square up with some of the technology in this case?
Okay, so I'm not following. Pardon me here.
That's okay. It's probably bad question. Bad question.
It's a fantastic question. I'm visualizing. Put me there. Jen is saying that at 12:36 she saw Karen's SUV outside of.
At 12:45 she said that. We know at 12:36 it connected to John O'Keefe's home Wi-Fi. That's the gap in.
Oh, okay.
Logic and in practicality. How does that happen? She's got a cover for that 12:45, and she just does it by saying, "I don't remember. I wasn't paying that much attention to the time."
Yeah. Okay. What's significant about that time gap, though?
Well, the significance is, how does she see there at 12:45 if she's gone for 9 minutes already? Maybe it's just to keep her there at the scene to cover for their plan to make her responsible. You said something very smart about one of your questions. Is she just a fall person?
Yeah, convenient.
Something that came out this time that did not come out the last time was a text, and I believe it was a Matt McCabe text, and this was barely a day and a half after. I think it was just before she was arrested. He texts to a group or to at least to his wife, I think it was a small group, that, hey, if she takes a plea deal, this will be over. Otherwise it's going to be an episode. This is before she's arrested.
Oh, wow.
So does that enlighten you on that theory that she's maybe just a fall person?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do think that, like, just the way I've been listening to everything, it's just like, I'm seeing a person who, even when she woke up and she was worried, she had a bad feeling, and she's like, hey, did I hit him? Could I have hit him? What could have happened? She's just like, I see her just outside of everything. Like, you've got a whole story, a whole drama happening, and she's literally on the outside, and she's involved in this just by happenstance. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah. Yep. I've called it the Meryl Streep theory, because she'd have to be a Meryl Streep level actress to have done something to her boyfriend intentionally or negligently without noticing.
Yeah.
And then act like she did in those phone calls and in all the testimony we've heard where she's just losing her shit about where is he, what's going on, you're a jerk, you left me alone with the kids, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some Oscar-winning performance there. So, okay. Well, now I feel better about some of my theories, having talked to somebody that's much smarter than I am and much deeper into the courts these days than I am. So, what are you doing? What are you working on? What's the latest? What's happening?
Oh, I've been doing some civil work lately.
Oh, good.
Incredibly stressful. California civil procedure is very interesting. So I've just been trying to tackle that lately, doing a little bit of litigation.
All right. Yeah, that's and I've said this before, and people may get offended, but there's a reason that criminal law is a first-year law school class, because it's kind of like, I call it like cookbook law. Here's the elements. Obviously, the facts could get wild, as we know, but here are the elements. Bing, 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 bing. You get to civil stuff, complex business litigation. Some of the stuff that may sound boring at first blush is so mind-bending that in so many directions it can go, unscripted. No, I feel your pain. I've been there. So I wish you the best of luck on that. Is that by choice or just some stuff came your way?
It just came my way.
Yeah, seems to be the way it works out.
Yeah.
All right. So don't forget Black Letter Law. You're still active on that, right?
Yeah, I think I'm getting back into it. Yeah.
Okay. I know you did so much work on the ASAP Rocky case, which was great. And it's so nice when it's in your backyard, right? Because
lovely.
Yeah, you just pop right over there, and it's just great to get that perspective. So next time there's one in LA, let's see what's coming up in LA.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it. I'll be covering it. I was gonna go to New York to do the Diddy trial.
Yeah.
It just didn't work out that way. I had some civil litigation.
Yeah. You had a life to handle there. Yeah, opening statements were supposed to be today. I've been so busy sitting here, I haven't really checked. But yeah, opening statements. I'm definitely going to get down there for part of the fun. That's supposed to last 2 months, and I've been down there for Weinstein. And you remember from Law and Crime, you remember Imran Ansari, of course, one of the other hosts. He's one of the attorneys representing Harvey, so we've been keeping in touch with him. This case has, of course, a third complainant, a new person who testified last week. So those cases are all kind of hovering in the New York area. But for now, we're really almost entirely on this Karen Reed thing. I've been up there 10 times.
What's the energy like out there?
It's amazing. It's positive. It's a little damped because of this damn buffer zone, which I'm sure you've heard about. Yeah, it's, they've put up a wall. Judge Canoni put up this barrier. They did it last time too, but they expanded it this time. And now I and another journalist are part of one federal lawsuit against the state troopers. There's a protester lawsuit against the troopers. There's another. Anyway, it's a mess. And the First Circuit has just ruled that they need to reconsider how this buffer zone is structured. And that just happened Friday.
Okay.
So they got to do something almost immediately. And we're hoping that it shrinks, if not disappears. So we'll see.
Well, let me ask this question really quickly. What do you think about Karen's decision to do her interviews?
I saw somebody had posted something today that I've been there. I was there Wednesday and Thursday of last week and got one-on-one quick questions with her as the scrums are. She did her scrum, and then as the sea parted, I stepped in and asked her a quick question. So she was talkative. I heard today she said, no comment, and there's some suggestion that her counsel has said, let's maybe put a lid on that. Not that she isn't a great spokesperson for her own interests,
Right.
but the defense team may have been leaning on her a little bit. So to answer your question, what attorney wants their client to be out there talking in any form, fashion, or purpose?
What about the documentaries that she did?
The which one?
The documentaries she did.
Oh, I know. Body in the Snow was on ID, now available on demand on HBO Max. So I think that's got issues. I don't think that it was uneven in the way they told the story, but so what? They're now excerpting some of those clips and using them for the prosecution's case and trial. And a lot of them are disjointed, they're out of context, and I'm sure they'll be woven together in some fabulous story by Mr. Brennan. But that stuff can come back to bite you in the ass. And the best approach is shut your mouth.
Yeah.
Just smile. So
she probably had to do it to raise some money for her defense.
there are many theories about that. That some people believe, hey, I'm innocent. Why can't I speak? Why can't I talk? Why shouldn't I? Dangerous. It's dangerous. Yeah. Afi, always a pleasure, and we will reach out and bother you again. Keep me posted on what's going out there in LA with you and other interesting
having
stuff.
me.
Yeah, of course. Always a pleasure. Thank you. Have a great evening. I'll talk to you next time.
Bye. Thank you.
So she's always great. Afi Patterson, Black Letter Law. Check that out. She was deep into the ASAP Rocky case because it is right there in her backyard. What's the LA case that's coming up? Why am I blanking on the big LA case that's coming up? I know there's the Weinstein retrial or trial. That's not it. Somebody help me. It's been a long day. Anyway, there's a big California case coming up. And if so, maybe we can enlist her as a special Just to Serve TV correspondent. All right, then. I'm going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody joining in for the day. I think, did I miss one here? I was looking for some. There was a note up here that came and went quickly, and I'm not sure I ever answered the question, what it was. If you guys, I don't know if you guys remember, Missy, Dizzy, if you saw, was there a question up here that you guys put up and then it disappeared real quickly? That's very possible. Very, very possible. I'm sorry about that. If so, we'll find it and address it tomorrow. Linda Kinney Bodden back in the morning. I'll be joining in the afternoon and taking us through the afternoon, and then we'll have our show. This one I saw, but Madeira Beach caregiver always deserves as much attention as possible. And then there was one right after this. Now I have my homework too is to go back and look at that video again when the dome light pops on to see if I can see some ghost-like figure there. So if there wasn't one after that, then maybe I'm seeing things, but I could have sworn there was. Anyway, thanks for coming along. Yeah, Black Letter Law. Check that out. Appreciate everybody joining today, all your questions and comments and all of those things. We'll get back at it tomorrow. Mystery witness. Who's going to be next? Any chance it'll be Higgins? That'd be too good. That would be too good. Oh, wait a minute. Nancy New 1 2. Lil Durk. Okay. That's in October. So that will follow in the vein of the music. The music is in these kids, but is criminal history also in the kids? Lil Durk. That'll be interesting. Okay, so let's get out of here. I'm Michael Bryant. We will see you next time. Until then, try to do the